Good morning, snowstorm fans. Today and this morning, we're going to go over a bit of, well, what Milestone 5 actually is. Okay? And what we're going to have to do to start is we're going to need two files open. We need the Atwood Residence 11 by 17 border, which is on canvas, and you need whatever file you've been working out of to create your Milestone 4 floor plans, like so. Just a brief note, this is not going to be due until the end of the last day of class, so you got some time. Not a lot, but you do have some. But let's get right into it. So the first thing I want to do is on this page, on my master plan, or on the file that I'm working off of, I'm going to go and I'm going to create a new sheet. I'm going to click New Layout. I'll click on it again, then I'll right click. And then from here, I'm going to go to the Page Setup Manager and then Modify. Now from here, you can do Adobe PDF or Microsoft Print to PDF. Let it do whatever it needs to do. Change the paper size here. We're going to be using 11 by 17 for these prints, so you may need to look through for a little bit until you find 11 by 17 or tabloid, Tabloid. That is an 11 by 17 format. What to plot will be layout. We'll leave all this information on here. The plot style table will be monochrome. And that looks great. I'll click OK and close. And it natively tried to put this like massive title block in here. So I can just remove that. I just did a zoom to extents command to get out there. Anyway, so I have a clean 11 by 17 sheet. I know it's 11 by 17 because if I draw lines 11 by 17, it works. I'm going to go to my 11 by 17 border file and just grab it all and Control C and Control V it into this. I may move it a little bit to be in the right location. I'm going to leave the sheet name as is because I'll change it as I go. My milestone is 5, and this sheet, for example, is a 4.1. I guess I can change that later too. From here, I'm going to right click on layout 1 and rename this to A 4.1. I'll right click on it again and then move or copy. Move to end, create a copy, okay. And I'm going to do this a total of 3 times. So I have 4 sheets in total. I'll then rename these to A4.1, A4.2. Rename this guy to A. Rename. Come on. Rename A 5.5 and then A 5.6. That is what is seen on the sheets here. 5.5, 5.6, 4.1, 4.2. I'll also go through and do a little bit more setup. I'll change the sheet names and what's on here to be accurate. So on here, this needs to be, this is A4.1 and this is door schedule. A4.2, well, that's window schedule. I'll do this through all of them. Make sure I change this to A4.2. On A5.5, this is section details. On A5.5. And the same thing on 5.6, the section details, A5.6. just like so. Now I have these 4 sheets, which are ready to go, which I will use shortly. But most of we can honestly ignore that for a bit, and we're just going to work on our model. I'm not going to be doing all of these. I'm just not. I'm going to do a couple of these. Because the rest of these, I mean, you should have all the information you need to get going on them. So, the first thing I'm going to do is I want to show a detail creation. Now, most of these details, and I mean most of them, all the information you need is directly on them. Some of them you need to infer certain things, like you just guess at what this distance is between the concrete flooring and the joint here. The concrete flooring and the footing. But you I believe it is 1 inch, or it's meant to be 1 inch, so you could do that as well. So on here there's a lot of things that are by design. Let's keep that in mind. Okay? Also, there is a new line type that we have to create. It is this guy. It's A batting or A insulation. And I'm going to do a couple of these details, or at least I'm going to do 2 details, I believe, in total, just to get our feet wet. And these are going to be ones that will be at least potentially a little bit more difficult for you. So I will be doing on A5.6 the eaves detail and the beam detail. I'll also show you putting these on the sheet, and I'll also show, I'll also show obviously creating them. We're also going to go through and I'll do one of these doors, one of these things that you see on here. And I'm going to show you how to make the table. Obviously, the windows will be the exact same. I may even just do the window instead, and I'll show you the creation of the table. But it is nothing too crazy. All right, let's just get right into it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be creating this eaves detail. Now, I have a sheet on my side, on my left here, to for assistance in creation, because it's just going back and forth between here and that will be a little much. So just note, I may jump over to point something out, but otherwise it's nothing crazy. Just zooming in on some of the elements will be pretty good. We also had to create some new layers for this, and I already did that. I already created those layers. Now, on my structural framing layer, I typically like to make or do everything on this layer and then change things after the fact. So, what do we have here? We have a 2x6 wall going up. I know it's a 2x6 wall because obviously it's our exterior wall. And absolute worst case, we can go to a different detail and I can see it is a 2x6 wall here. Pretty basic stuff. I also have a 2x6 rafter. That's noted right here. I have on top of that rafter the 5/8 exterior grade plywood sheathing, which is the underlayment for, well, kind of the underlayment. It's the it's the sheathing that goes underneath the shingles. We also have notes for what kind of shingles these are. 235-pound asphalt shingles with adhesive taps on 15-pound building felt. This is nothing crazy. Okay, like this, I want to get that clear. This is not insane to do. Everything we need is here. And what I'm going to do is I may even just pull it here and work on it like this. Maybe it's a little big. I'm just going to pull a line down anywhere in open space. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to do an offset command of this 5.5 inches because, well, that's the thickness of our stud here. I'll move this in a bit more for creation purposes. And I may even scale these down because they don't need to be so big while I'm creating this. This will help with referencing. There we go. That's good. I may even do a stretch command to bring this to be a little bit shorter because, you know, it's a little different size. It's nothing crazy. I'm going to draw a line across the top because I need to do this double top plate. And this is 2 pieces of the lumber running along the top. So I'm going to offset 1.5 inches because it's 2 2x6s at the top, like so. And I may even just move this in a little bit more and zoom in a little bit more. There we go. And I'm going to create X's in these to denote these being sectional lumber here. Fantastic. What I'm going to do next is I'm just looking around and I'm looking at the details that I have. On the interior side, which is this side, you can see it from here, there's a 1/2 inch gyp board. So I'm going to do an offset of 0.5 or 1/2 of an inch to the right. That's good. And I'm just looking around. I'm looking at the details that I have here. And wouldn't you know, I may be actually missing some information, which will be useful. So I will adjust this before assigning this, before you actually receive it. Blah, 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 blah. Here we go. Here we go. I know it's a 5/12 pitch. That's perfectly fine. But that does help. Basically, I'll have this on the actual sheet, but we'll have this triangle denoting this angle here as being a 5/12 pitch. But I'll have that adjusted. So anyways, what that tells us is this roof is up 5/12. That's like going to give us our angle. And also I can see from here that this bird's mouth, this cut that occurs on this wood here, it starts at the very corner here. So very simply, I'm going to go up 5 inches and over 12 inches from this side. Draw a line to connect the pieces. Wouldn't you know it, I got the angle all set up. I'll perform a lengthen command, L-E-N, enter, D-E, enter. And I just will do like a 12 inches. Just extend it up and down. And I'll trim out this excess on the interior here. I'll then do an offset of 5.5 inches because it's a 5.5 inch rafter. Just like so. And this is looking pretty good to me so far. Now, I like to do the broad strokes first before going in and adding additional detail. So what that means for me is I'm going to kind of look at how this ends over here on the left side. And it is 1 foot. This board, essentially, there is a piece of fascia trimming which sits on the soffit. It's 1x10 AZEK trim. It is on the sheet, and its face sits 1 foot away from the face of stud. So I'm going to do an offset of 12 inches, just like so, and I'm just simply going to trim this. And I'll even trim this piece here. I'm going to offset again 3/4 of an inch, because a 1x10 is 3/4 of an inch thick by 9.5 inches deep. So I offset this in. I'm going to extend this up, draw myself a little line that goes over, extend this up and trim that. And I'll offset this little line down 9.5 inches. From here I'll trim and trim. And that is my fascia board. From here, there is a actual soffit here. It's a 1/2 inch exterior grade plywood soffit. Very simply, it goes from right here in and offset 1/2 or 1/2 inch. Just like so. There's also a note for 2x3 blocking. So very, very simply, we know two by whatever is 1.5 inches. So I'll offset this to the left by 1.5 inches. And if it's a 2x4, it's 1.5 inches by 3.5. If it's 2x3, it's 1.5 inches by 2.5. So I will do an offset of 2.5. Pull this up. And I'll simply fillet those corners in and just trim that excess and draw myself an X. And a line that goes across here. Again, I'll adjust line weights and line types a little bit later. Great. That's looking pretty good. On top of this roof section here, I have, again, this 5/8 exterior grade sheathing. So I'm going to do an offset of, excuse me, of 5/8, 5/8. Offset up like that. And I'm even just going to do a fillet to bring this end in just like so, because it will be. Cool. Now, these shingles on the roof, they're 10 inches long. How do I know that? I just do, but you can also estimate. It's not the biggest deal in the world. What we're going to do here is, and how we're going to draw these, it's very, very simple. I'll very simply draw a line horizontally 10 inches long. On the left side, I'm going to draw up 0.5 inches. Maybe a little more if I'm feeling a little spicy, but 1/2 inch is good. And I'll connect them up to create this triangle. I'll remove the bottom face of this triangle and perform a copy command from this bottom corner and paste it right on there. I'll then do a rotate command, RO, and align it with this face here. And from here, I'll do another copy command from the base of this shingle, and then just keep pulling it up and pasting it at the ends here. Just like so. And I'll remove that shingle that I drew. We also have this cedar shake shingle with what is noted as a 6-inch reveal. So up here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a 6-inch tall line. Again, 1/2 inch out and connect it up. Move this up where the top aligns with that. And I'm just going to copy this down. Just like so. You know, in reality, I totally missed this. Of course I did. But in reality, we would have sheathing underneath this, but I clearly missed it with this one detail in particular. Down here, we actually have it. Of course, on other details, of course, we have it. But I messed that up. But anyway, just note, usually you'd actually have this. You'd have a sublayment. Cool. Well, we're almost done with this. What I'm going to do now is I want to draw the, yeah, basically there's 3 things left. We have to draw, at least. We have our insulation to draw, we have our furring strips to draw, and we have, like, our ceiling system, rather, furring strips in our ceiling system, and we have these break lines. Pretty basic. After that, we have to dimension and add these notes, but that's nothing too crazy. From here, what I'm going to do is I know that these furring strips, because it says it here, these are 1x3s. And remember, a 1-inch deep thing on dimensional lumber is 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to do an offset of 3/4. Offset this down. And I'll offset this down 1/2 of an inch, because that's the thickness of my gypsum board. I'll then clean up this interaction where I'll extend the roof down to meet up down here and trim the top off of my wall wall gyp. Next up, I have to add these furring strips. Very basic. Very similarly to how we drew the other things. I'm just going to draw a 3/4 of an inch by 2.5 inches by 3/4 by 2.5, and then just connect it up in an X. I'll very simply remove the top and the bottom to make this kind of like bow tie. I'll copy this up to here. I'll grab this, all the elements of it, rotate it into place, and then very basically, I'm going to copy this. And just so I can show that there's multiple on here, I'm not really measuring the distance, but that's good. Just like so. Last but not least, we have to, or 2 things left. We have to add these brake lines, and we have to add the insulation. Very basically, to start with the insulation, I'm just going to draw a vertical line down here. And I'm going to draw a line across, and then up. And extend it a bit. Nothing crazy. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this line, and I'm going to go into my layer properties, and I'm going to select my A insulation layer, like so. Now, this may look absolutely massive, and that's because it kind of is. Just note that this is going to get printed on 1 inch equals a foot size. So I may even change, I'm going to change my viewport to be 1 inch as a foot. And even then, when I do a regenerate, this is still really big. So I'm going to take this guy, and I'm going to go to the properties manager. We went over it in this class before. I think that was last week. So properties, I'm just typing that in. Alternatively, you can right click and click properties, right click properties. And with this selected, I'm going to adjust the line type scale manually. I'll change this down to 0.75 to start. Still a little big, 0.5. 1/2 an inch is pretty good. Move to about 0.55. That's really good. That's exactly what I want. I'll then do a match properties with this guy to here. And that's good. Also keep in mind this should be dashed because it's hidden here. But you can do this, you don't have to. I'll change the line type to hidden 2 there, and it's, again, not a big deal. From here, I'm going to go through and I'm going to change the line weights or the line types that these are on. Now, these and this, these need to be on the gyp layer, a gypsum. These shingles, well, these need to be on my A roofing layer, so I'll select these. Find my A roofing. And you wouldn't, I don't know if you can guess it, but my siding needs to be on my A siding layer. That's great. Everything else can be left as is. Now I'm going to go to my A dimension layer, and I'm just going to draw myself a break line. I'm just going to draw a line, no particular length. I'll draw a line again up, nothing particular about it. I may even get a little fancy and rotate it slightly. Take this and then just copy, paste, trim, trim. Again, this doesn't have to be perfect at all. Just create something that you think is close enough. Anyway, I'm going to move this into place. Rotate it, of course. And then officially move it in to around here. I'll then take this guy, copy it, and paste it to down here. Now I'll trim anything that goes past this line, like so. And I may even shorten the insulation to not get cut off. Trim, trim, trim. I cut off too much there. Trim. Clean up. Similar deal. Just like so. And bring the top down a little bit too. I may move this entire thing up. But, oh well. That's great. Almost done with this guy. What I need to do from here, excuse me, what I need to do from here is all these notes. Now, what I like to do is I like to create a line, which is my basis. So it's all lined up and nice and even. I'll start with a regular dimension just to denote this as being 1 foot. Just like so. And I'll grab a multi-leader. And obviously I'm going to start with my top and work my way down. I'll grab a point around here. Pull up to a point way kind of up here. And type in R19 batting insulation. You're essentially creating every single note that you see here. I'm then going to create a line that goes straight down from here. And that's because I'm going to grab another multi-leader and I'm looking at these notes. This one is for the rafters. I'm just going to zoom in and click on a point in there. Turn off my F8. It's like right there. 2 by 6 rafters at 24-inch OC. And you're going to continue to do this on and on and on until you have all of these notes. So next one is this guy for the sheathing. 5/8-inch EXT grade. I'll hit enter. Plywood sheathing. I'm going to go through and do all of these, so I'll be right back. All right, after creating those, you'll end up with something that looks kind of like this. Note that all of these are lined up. I can remove my temporary elements here. And I may even just grab this entire thing and move it out slightly. So that's one. Done. I mean, I can even do a stretch command and bring these in a bit. Not entirely necessary, but you can. Nothing crazy about that. And from here, what we're going to do is I'm going to show how to put this on a sheet. So we'll put this guy on a sheet, and then we'll do another one of these details, put that on a sheet, and then we'll be laughing. We don't got much left to do here. So we did this guy. And this guy didn't take very long to do. Just keep that in mind. It does take a little bit of knowledge to go through and do this, but regardless. This guy should be on A5.6, so I'll go on to my A5.6 sheet. In my layout tab, I'm going to go to viewport rectangular. Well, first I need to make sure my viewport layer is activated. Layout rather, viewport. And I'm just going to draw a pretty big rectangle here. I'll activate my viewport by double clicking in it, and I'm just going to zoom in on this detail I drew. And I'm going to change my the scale of it in here to 1 inch equals a foot, and I'll lock it. And I'll double click out of it. Cool. From here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust this to where all of the elements are fitting inside of it pretty comfortably. Just like so. And I'm going to move this viewport up to the corner. Great. If I do a regenerate, and double click in there and regenerate, it'll show that this is exactly how I want it. And if I go to try to print and preview, this looks great. Again, you can adjust the size of this installation to not be as big, but as long as it is close enough. Great. Let's do this beam detail here, because I'm sure I'm going to get questions about this guy. We're going to have to go and load that beam in, but we're going to start with that, actually. I'm going to go to my design center, so I'm going to type DC, personally. I'm going to go to English US, Dynamic Blocks, and I'm going to go to, I believe, structural imperial.dwg, then blocks. And we can see that we have some elements in here. I'm just going to look at this guy. Yeah, it says, this beam here says S15 by 50 I-beam with 3/4 inch wood beam wrap. So I'm going to grab my I-beam, drag and drop it in. I'll close my design center. I'm going to change my layer to framing for now. Just so we can see it a little better. And note that this guy is too small. I'm going to click on this drop down at the bottom here. Zoom out so we can see the notes here. The drop down. And I'm looking for 15 by 50, S15 by 50. So I can see S15 by 42.9, S15 by 50. Notice how it gets bigger. I am going to have to hatch this with a beam hatch, but that's perfectly fine. No harm here. What I want to excuse me, what I want to draw now is my 3/4 inch wood beam wrap. This is a decorative element that goes on it. Very basically, I'm just going to draw 3 sides of a rectangle that go to all these points. Offset 3/4 inch. Like so. Fill these together. And then draw the corners, the mitered corners, like so. I may even get rid of the wood beam wrap on the bottom there. That looks great. This will be my starting point for this drawing. From here, I'm going to have to draw this kind of like spider web, and that's perfectly fine and honestly not that bad. We have a 2x6 joist and 2x6 rafters. Very, very easy. I'm just going to draw a line to the left or to the right. Move it a little bit to be kind of off-centered like this. Offset 5.5 for 5.5 inches. Awesome. I may even move it to be centered because that's going to be more, it's going to be easier essentially for how we're drawing this. Now I'm just going to draw a small line that goes up here, and I'll draw a line that continues up. And I'm going to offset this by 5.5, but technically not. I need to find whatever is half of 5.5. And I believe, if my math is not wrong, it's 2 3/4 inch. So I'm going to offset by 2.75 to both the left and the right. Why do I do that? Because them added up is 5.5 inches. Very basic. Now, from these corners here, I'm going to draw a line that is any length, doesn't really matter, in 135 degrees. Basically, so it is 45 degrees from here, 45 degrees from here, 135 from here. What is expected, basically. I'm then going to offset this by 2 3/4 again on either side. Remove the middle, trim. And I'm simply going to grab this guy and mirror it to the other side. Awesome. From here, I am going to, I'm going to just draw a rectangle. Does not have to be anything perfect. This is a nailing plate. This is, I can potentially find an image. I know this is a pretty bad image, but this is an example of nailing plates. Very, very, very common. And you will be drawing a couple of those in this project. Anyway, continuing on, I have some extra things I have to draw. But we're almost done with this already. I have to do this gypsum ceiling. So I'm just going to draw my furring strip first. Again, it is 2.5 inches by 7, 3/4 of an inch, 2.5. Up, draw my X. I remove the top and the bottom because they're going to get over or obscured anyways. Put that there. I'm simply going to mirror this to the other side for ease of, basically ease. Draw a line over, offset 1.5. Oof, offset 0.5 because it's half of an inch. Same thing. Mirror it. Now I'm just going to go through and set some of these to be on the correct layers. Now this gypsum needs to be, well, on the gypsum layer, of course. This guy, if I remember properly, I'm just looking at some of my layers I got to work with here. Sorry, my cat is clawing at my chair. Ugh. We can leave most of the rest of this on framing, but we also have the we have our insulation to actually add still. Now I'm just gonna base this off of where this line is currently, nothing crazy, and I'm gonna set this to my A insulation layer. Now this isn't big enough because this is supposed to be some pretty big insulation. I'll go to my properties palette. Change it to 1.1 maybe, 1.25. 1.25 looks good to me. And I'm going to shorten this to basically resemble what I have a little bit more. Like so. Based on this, I may have to even extend these out a little bit more. Perfectly fine. And I'm going to go up and I'm going to grab my break line from here. I'm going to take this, make a copy, another copy. I'm going to rotate this 45 degrees and then rotate this one full 90. I'm going to move this into place. I like to just make sure it cuts stuff off. Move this into place. Nothing crazy. Move this guy into place. I'm then going to grab this guy, this break line, and then mirror it across. Oops, jeez. Mirror it across. And I'm also going to bring it down a bit more because I don't need it to be super encompassing on this side. I'm just going to move this guy, or copy this guy over to around here. Trim all of the excess, like so. And we're almost done with this guy. I'm going to put a hatch in with my, I'm just going to use my regular framing layer. HA for me for hatch. This is going to be ANSI 32. I'll place it in there, and I'm going to have to change the scale a little bit because it is a little small. Maybe 2. That looks good to me. And now I can go to my A5. Not yet. I have to add my text, of course. I'll move this over a little bit because there's most of the text is on one side of it. I'm going to make my A dimension layer current. I'm going to grab in the annotate tab my multi-leader and just make a leader here. This is R30 batting insulation with vapor barrier. I may even move this in a bit more. You can always adjust these a bit to fit your page a little bit better. No harm. I'm then going to grab one here. This pull up here, 2x6 rafter. Drop a line down. Grab another multi-layer. 2x6 joist, 2x6 joist. And I will add the note for this guy. S15 by 50. I beam with 3/4 inch wood beam wrap. Move that guy. I'll move this over and down a little bit. I've created this guy successfully. On A5.6, very simply, I'm just going to take this border, or this viewport, Control-C and Control-V. And this guy goes directly beneath the one that we already made. So I'm going to double-click in here, click on my lock icon, and just move it in like so. Lock it again, double-click out of it, and then bring the viewport to fit around it well. Just like so. Now from here, I'm going to go back to my design center, my DC, English US, dynamic blocks, annotation imperial blocks, and we have drawing title imperial. I'm going to drag and drop this in. I'm simply going to move this guy underneath my first drawing. I'll copy it, paste it down beneath it. This guy, just note, when you double click on it, you're going to get this enhanced attribute editor. This is essentially going to allow you to rename this easy. So viewport, I'll just start at the top. This one says viewport scale 1:1. This is scale 1 inch equals 1 foot 0 inches. The view name, this one is eaves detail, and the view number is 1. Double click on this guy. This guy's name is beam detail. The view number on this guy is 2. And the scale on this guy is also 1 inch equals 1 foot 0 inches. Okay. And wouldn't you know it, this is looking fantastic. If I go to my preview, this is what this is looking like so far. Just note, I can obviously tell that we're cut off a little bit there. So in this case, what you could do, I can just shift this over a bit and then just extend this out a bit. And that looks good to me. Great. So you're basically going to take the same concept and you're going to work through everything else. However, I want to show at least a little bit of like the scheduling and how you do this. All you're doing is you're drawing what you see here. I will do a part of the window schedule. Very, very basically, how do you do this? Right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go onto my window layer, and this will all be on the window layer, for example. And then the door one is all on the door layer. So a window. And I'm just going to draw this. You can estimate this. It doesn't really matter because, again, you're not putting actual dimensions in for a lot of it. So I'm going to draw. I may even just draw a window that we are using, or a standard window. So I'll draw a 36-inch wide, 48-inch tall, and then 36, 48. I got this box here. This box is representing, it's kind of hard to see, it's representing what the width and the height says. I'm then going to offset inwards towards the center in order to draw what we got going on here. We have an 1.5 inch border around it on the inside. Offset 1.5. offset, 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 offset. I'll trim, or you can fill it to make this look good, like so. Awesome. Then from here, at the very center of this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line directly across and offset 1 inch up and down to create this 2 inch between the two equals. Very basic. I'll extend this across at the bottom and trim at the top. This is essentially creating 2 panels. And very basically draw my window cross, my mullions. And now I'm going to draw the trim around the window. Very easily, I'm going to do an offset of 3 inches. Left, up, and right. Fill that together. And I'm going to do an offset down of 1 inch. Extend these out. Lengthen by delta 1 inch. Because again, it goes to the end plus an inch. So lengthen, lengthen. Draw lines down, trim, extend, extend, trim. And that's looking great. I'm going to go to my A dimension layer. And these guys are put on the sheet at 3/4 of an inch equals a foot. Keep that in mind. So I'm going to change this, or change my view scale to 3/4 of an inch equals a foot. And very basically, I'm going to copy the dimensions that we see on here. Like so, like so. I got this guy, this guy, this guy. Boom, 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 boom. We also have something that says goes to here, and then go use my dimension continue button. I'll then just drag this back to close, then draw another dimension here. Excuse me. And very basically, again, I'm just going to adjust these to match up exactly where these dimensions were taken from. Now, where it says 3 feet, this should just say width. So I'm going to press, I'm just going to type width and remove anything else that says in there. Now, this should say equal. So should this equal, equal. And this should say height. That's how you draw one of these windows. Now on my A4.1, sorry, A4.2, that's my window schedule. I'm very basically going to just bring that in. I could, and I potentially will, I may just go to this sheet that I've already created these viewports, Control C to copy it, and then go to that sheet, Control V to paste it, double click inside of it, unlock the scale, zoom in on this guy, change the view to 3/4 of an inch equals a foot, and then lock it. Then bring this in, just like so. And for now, I'm just gonna move this down to like the corner, but I can always move that later. Okay, how do we go about creating that table? Now, when I'm filling in the elements of that table, I'm using a sheet to my side. You're going to 1-for-1 copy what this says on this window schedule. Very basic. What you're going to do is you're going to go to the Annotate tab. And in here, we have tables. Now, of course, you can change table styles and everything like that. I'm just going to use the standard table. And the information it gives you by default is pretty good. All we want to do is we want to make sure that we change like the column and row settings. So we have, how many columns do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 6 columns. So I'll change this to 6. And then data rows, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'll change this to 8. You can always add them later. Then I'll click OK. And just click it in there. Now note this looks like an Excel sheet because it kind of is acting like one. I'm gonna call this window schedule. This guy is mark quantity type size manufacturer and comments. Very basically, this is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. The quantities, you're going to copy this. So this is 4, 1, 1, 1, 1, 6, 2, 4. Type, double hung. And a little bit of a tip. When you do one that says double hung or of a certain type, just copy and paste it. Double hung, double hung, double hung. G is also double hung. This is casement, side, light, picture, and hopper. Now, of course, I made an error on this originally where I didn't actually input the heights of the windows on this, and we're just going to run with it. So 2 foot 7 1/16 by 5, 6. And you'll go through for all of these. Just like so. And then in the manufacturer, these are all Anderson windows, copy, oops. Oh, wow, can't even type right. Anderson, not Anderden. Copy, paste, 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 paste. Perfect. Now from here, I may even just select all of these rows and make sure, like I'm looking at my formatting, maybe just particularly these guys. You can see the justification that it tries to put in here. I personally like to make them all like center. So like middle center. Select all these middle center. Maybe you can select them all middle center. Now for this guy, we don't have any comments on these guys. I'm trying to figure out where the extra height came in, but anyway, what we can do from here is we can adjust the size of these rows to be a little bit more realistic, starting from the left and working your way to the right. It can be a little frustrating to get this to work the way you expect it to, but neither here nor there. Now, realizing the text height of this is a little odd, as in the scaling of this seems a little big. What you may have to do, and what we may need to do when we start this, is when we are in our annotate tab, we may need to create a new table style by clicking on that drop down, modify, and then very simply, I mean, I'm looking in here, seeing what all the information is in here, right? I don't think I even really need to modify this. It's just like the text height seems a little tall to me. But yeah, it's all 3/16 of an inch tall. If you select the entire table or all these elements on the interior, it's not going to let you change it. Okay. That's fine. You just need to be cautious of this. You may need to... Can you do a scale command on this? Yeah. You may need to scale it, literally, with a scale command to scale it down a little bit to get it to look a little bit more like what we actually have. And that would be perfectly fine. As long as everything fits. Everything should fit on the window one just fine without any issue, but without scaling it. But the door one is a little bit more crowded, so you probably will have to actually scale it. But regardless, that's how you go about doing that. Well, wouldn't you know it, that's just about everything I wanted to talk about today and wanted to go over. This is the end of the required lecture for this. But here is never mind. Never mind. I'll show it in an announcement, so you'll be fine. Great. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, and have a safe, warm day.